Hey, Ralph here. Today we're just going to do a quick little discussion about the graphical tools that we have available to us on the exam. So the title of this tip of the week is just to GUI or not to GUI. You really, for the most part, probably will not need access to any of the graphical tools on the exam, but you may find the graphical tools to be useful. So I always recommend that people at least take a look at the graphical tools before they go into sit the exam to figure out whether or not that tool is going to be worthwhile for me. And then also it gives you an alternative. So if you get stuck configuring networking at the command line or something like that, then you've got this fallback. You've got this graphical tool that you can also use. So it's a good idea to have that fallback and at least have some familiarity with it. Generally speaking, it won't be a necessity to use these tools, but it's a good idea to have some familiarity with the tools and at least take a look at them as part of your exam preparation. So let's kind of just jump out here. Let me share my screen here. So let's do that. All right. So I'm just on a standard box here, and some of the graphical tools are installed by default, and so if you have a default installation, then things like if you come down here to utilities, and if I select disks, I'll have access to the disk tool, and then some of the tools are not. For example, if I type in let's say some config users, for example, tells me that the command's not found. Now Yum does. Many of these graphical tools do start with system config, and Yum does support wildcards. So if I want to just kind of in the background get a bunch of these tools installed, come out here, just pop open a new tab. On that new tab, I'll go ahead and get an interactive sudo session going. And then if I type in, yum-y install system config star, I'm going to go out and get a whole bunch of stuff, right? So I'm going to get system config users and system config kickstart and system config date and some system config. So at that point, and that didn't even take all that long. But so at this point now I can type in, system config and then just use my tab completion, and I should see there's my list. So there's system config kickstart or system config date, for example. Now, you don't necessarily have to access these from the, whoa, it booted me. No good. Let's go ahead and get reconnected here. So, I mean, I'll be able to find these tools, through applications, right? So I can come out here, and once I have system config users installed and things like that, you'll see that now, users and groups shows up because it's now installed. The system config date shows up because it's now installed. Now, if I go, notice at the top, system config authentication didn't show up because that would be an example of a graphical tool that has a slightly different. That's the auth config GTK. So if I wanted to install that, then I'd have to come back out here and the yum-y, auth config. I'll just say auth config star. See, that's what happens when you go fast. Go ahead and say install. And there it is, auth config GTK. So now that I have that installed, I come back here to my menu, applications, and then you'll see now, now authentication is up here at the top of the list. So, the graphical tools, for configuring users and things like that, not so much. But, things like the firewall graphical tool, that's a very effective tool for configuring the firewall. It gives you a nice visual. One thing you always want to remember when you launch the firewall configuration tool is that you're going to want to make sure that you're dealing with the persistent firewall and not dealing with the running firewall. But there are a number of, obviously the networking tool up here. I can come up here and I can select networking settings and bring up the networking tool as well. Firewall is not running because of an earlier demo that I did to turn off the firewall in my class. So that would be why that didn't work. Let's go ahead and take a look here. So if I say systemctl start, can't type today, start firewall D, tells me that it is masked. So look at that, get some bonus learning here. So that service is currently masked, so it can't be run. So I'm going to go ahead and unmask that service. And again, that would not be the default. That's something I did in an earlier demo. And now when I start the firewall service, it starts. And when I go out here and I actually run the graphical tool for managing the firewall, it's probably going to like me a little bit better now. And everything won't be completely grayed out while it can't connect. Hey, that looks better. Now notice here that the default when you open this tool is to go to the runtime configuration. Generally speaking, we want to make sure that we do things persistently. So if you do open up this particular tool, then you're going to want to make sure that one of the first things you do is you switch it over to the permanent configuration. You may get prompted, for a password there, either root password, or if you're in the sudo group for your password, then you might want to check on that. Let's see. I must have typed that in wrong. Oh yeah, now we're better. All right. So again, I'm not really going to discuss how to use each individual tool. This is meant to be sort of a quick little hangout based off of just the idea of, do we want to use graphical tools or don't we want to use graphical tools on the exam? And in reality, like I said, you do not need to use graphical tools on the exam. There are a number of graphical tools that are out there. I'll just fire up, for example, system config users. And that allows you to create users, groups, and that sort of thing. Again, that's easy enough to do with the command line. I just want you to be aware, and as part of your preparation, ask yourself with each of the objectives, is there a graphical tool for doing this? And let me take a look at it, and I can say, yeah, I might find that useful. That might be faster to use the graphical tool, or possibly not, right? And so it's not a matter of right or wrong here, okay? This is really a matter of choice. And as part of your preparation, you might as well be as prepared as possible. So even though you know how to do something at the command line, you're perfectly comfortable with that, it might not be a bad idea to take a look at the graphical tool and build up some comfort and familiarity with that as well. So I personally don't do much with the graphical tools when I'm testing. Certainly don't do much with graphical tools when I'm doing administration, but I do know that they're there. I do know how to use them, and they are there for a fallback if I choose. So quick little hangout. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you for the next one. Bye.